Church said you had a telegram.
Coroner's verdict on Patrick Morris. Suicide. They'll blame me.
You were strong. He was weak. Who's to blame for that?
Does he think you put a gun in your mouth if you go under?
I bear you no ill will, Mr. Fane.
I've told you to spend time in Mrs. Chamberlain's company is to be contaminated.
Are you gonna quit working at that house? We must be pretty bad for you to work 2 jobs and live like a servant.
I had a letter from Mrs. Fane today. She means to call on me. I'll see her, I suppose.
Haven't you ever wanted a woman who thinks only of you?
Miss Turner, is something keeping you?
There are moments where George gets to use his power, and I think his concept of revenge is very expansive.
The aldermen have seen George coming. They know what he wants is in their power, and they think they have the power to make 3 fortunes out of George. But they have underestimated George.
George finds himself in a position where he has to essentially risk all of his capital in order to protect himself from the aldermen.
I thought you were honorable men. Not too honorable to miss the chance of a fast buck, of course, but not greedy, dirty thieves.
George is taking some risks with the business and they're facing financial ruin. And Bertha doubles down on her support for him. I told you before. We've made one fortune together, and if needs be, we'll make and spend another.
They have a real partnership in that sense. Knowing that she has that kind of faith in him, it gives him the confidence to do what he has to do in a very dicey situation.
What are we going to do? We buy. We buy every piece of company stock that comes on the market. And not a soul is to hear about it.
He takes the risk, and the reward is enormous.
And this is based, actually, on a completely true episode that happened to Commodore Vanderbilt.
We've already lost enough to make us poor. But if it goes on for much longer, there's some among us facing ruin.
He did exactly that. And I think 2 or 3 of them committed suicide at the end because he ruined them all.
I am Cornelius Eckhart III.
I thought it was you. We know that Ada had a love that wanted to marry her and that he was refused by her father. But then Cornelius isn't actually that great love. We knew each other when we were young in Pennsylvania.
Before life drove us to the 4 corners of the earth.
I got his number and I call him out. Ada's disappointed, but I think I've rescued her from someone who really wanted to take advantage of her.
When Cornelius comes and then suddenly disappears, she doesn't really understand what's happened. Surely you can stay for a few minutes.
I am sorry. Bannister, will you see Mr. Eckhart out? I think I'm very much the big sis. She's very protective of her little sister.
I can say, hand on heart, there is no man living who cares more for you than I.
I think his intentions are always sincere and earnest, and he really cares about her.
Let me spend what remains to me of life in the sole cause of making you happy.
He's really kind. He's a good man. He wants to be successful. He has a lot of dreams and big ideas, and he goes and gets them. She's trying to find her path toward a meaningful and effective life, and part of that is building a home and a family that she has lost.
Miss Scott? But you never mentioned you were...
It's really interesting to see Peggy be in this white publishing office where she's faced with a choice that many of us are faced with in many different ways. Do you sacrifice your authenticity for access to this space to where we were told is the upper echelon?
Now, there are adjustments we'd ask you to make so that your work is more palatable to our readers.
Of course.
We'd have you sign a document that you accept our policy, which would prevent you divulging publicly that you are the writer of any stories we might publish.
Many Black Americans walk through difficult, uncomfortable situations where you understand that you need to keep your job. But at a certain point, you're unwilling to deal with certain indignities that come your way.
I think that it's important to look at that narrative of Peggy saying no to never revealing herself with a lot of specificity because it made me wonder how many Black writers did say yes to that offer, how many Black inventors did say yes to that offer, and we don't know. We don't know their work, and I can't blame them.
There aren't any colored writers, especially women writers, who can make a living wage.
I will soon find out how much colored women writers make.
He loves her, and the discrimination and the racism that awaits her in that field might be too much to bear. You could always come home and work for me. It is that fatherly love that sees the path ahead that the child can't quite see.
Did I make a mistake? I could have my stories published in a newspaper right now.
But you'd never be able to claim them. Somewhere there's an open door and you're going to walk through it.